Hello, my name Oh, I gotta make this video make sense! Hello, my name is Josh Tyler and welcome to My Privileged Opinion. I hope you've had a great week. Please like, subscribe, touch all the buttons. It's helpful to me. Something that I try and pride myself on is listening. And over the years, I think that I have come up with a unique way in which to hear how people communicate themselves. And sometimes it's not always very direct. In understanding that my privilege is a lack of trauma, I started to really hear how people communicate their trauma. And it's really through name calling. As a white man, I've been called fatphobic, transphobic, homophobic, racist, misogynistic, like every name under the sun I have been called at some point in my life. And I used to get really defensive, as anyone who gets called a name does. However, over the years, I have just started to see this name calling, in essence, a way in which people are communicating their trauma. For example, if I get called racist, if I get called misogynistic, what I hear is, the thing that I just did is triggering and or causing trauma for a woman around the social construct of sex. If I get called racist, what I hear is, the thing in which I just did is triggering and causing trauma for that person within the social construct of race. And for me, framing it in this way really helps me keep that person at the center of the conversation, because it's about their trauma, not my lack of trauma. You can tell someone that they don't have something by telling them that you do have something and it looks like X. You don't have trauma, and I can show you that by showing you my trauma and how what you just did is triggering feelings of that trauma within me. I want to expand a little bit on the white veil idea that I talked about in my racial disconnect video, which is here, because I think that highlighting this nuance in white people actually helps facilitate an aspect of this conversation. The white veil idea was really just about how there are things that we don't see from our vantage point and lived experience as white people, right? And that typically is highlighted as race or whatever. But for me, within this framework, it really is, we're not seeing trauma. And the interesting thing about that, having been at that place in my life, was that I was an ignorant white person. So if I am ignorant, therefore I do not know. Therefore I am not conscious about it. Therefore it is not done with intent. And that goes for anything, right? Everyone is unaware of everyone's trauma. And like, yes, I understand. We've had race issues for a long time in this country. And so it's almost to a point of like, how can you not understand? But that goes back to the racial disconnect video, that I as a white person was never thinking about black people in any capacity. See them on TV, whatever, didn't care. I wasn't thinking about their blackness, their trauma. And so those wires just never touched in my brain. That nuance of, I did something out of ignorance, therefore unintentional, but the conversation is being started as if it was done intentionally, will always take the conversation away from the person that it actually needs to be about, and that is the traumatized person. Because the moment that you come at me as if I did that intentionally, we now get to talk about me. How I'm not racist, how I have I have one black friend, how I grew up in a family where we don't see color. Like, the conversation then becomes centered around me. And that is typically why, as a traumaless person, when someone would approach me about something that I did that was racist and done intentionally, I would always immediately get defensive, because like I said, I wasn't thinking about black people, therefore I wasn't thinking about their trauma. I just wasn't thinking. Yeah, it causes people trauma. Yeah, it perpetuates trauma-causing behavior. But it wasn't done intentionally. Now, this framework is applicable across any conversation that you are trying to articulate yourself. Gender, sex, religion, accessibility, all of the things. The goal is to keep your trauma at the center of the conversation. The moment that you name call someone, they become the center of the conversation. So the way in which you communicate that is, if your trauma gets triggered, you say, the thing that you just did made me feel X. Or, I grew up feeling X because of behaviors that you just did, or beliefs that you just shared. And when you do them, that digs back up in me X and da 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 da. The goal in this is to keep the trauma at the center of the conversation. And in doing that, you highlight my lack of trauma. Through this next week, I want you to work on keeping yourself and your trauma at the center of the conversation. And in the comments below, let me know what you think about this. Does this make sense? Is this missing a component that I didn't see? Let me know. But go out into the world, be good and do good, and I will see you all next week. Goodbye. Like the racism that I did unconsciously, unintentionally, out of ignorance, was because I just didn't think about black people in any capacity other than you're a person who's just darker than me. Like, not there. And I don't know how else to explain that.